Yo, y'all think I should join? Oh shit, I thought I just fucked up something. Think I should join Kick? They try to get me to join for like 20 cents. This nigga went to frat niggas. I already don't respect you. Yo, today we're watching the video of some nigga called the Acid King. I don't know what this shit's about. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yo, they start playing some shit backwards.
This is satanic. This is a very generic symbol.
Heavy metal music. The rock show Mission Death Fest 1 is being staged at the Jackson.
See my computer doing some weird shit. Hey, all I wanted to say was pray. Pray. But yeah, we're watching a video on some nigga called the Acid King. I don't know what this is about. You feel me?
Jackson Optimus Sports Arena. It was originally supposed to happen in Detroit.
Like, subscribe. That's what I was trying to say. My fault.
Jackson concerned the groups promote satanic worship.
Early in the 1980s, the satanic panic had started mainly in the United States and eventually into other countries throughout the late 90s. Some argue that it's still going on to this day. It was a moral panic that started due to rumors spreading across country that people were performing satanic rituals. And during the 80s, American pop culture was obsessed with the occult and satanic imagery, which led to many people believing that magic, heavy metal music, and role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons would infiltrate the minds of the youth, leading them to worship the devil. Some parents believed devil worshippers would roam around the streets looking for human sacrifice, doing drugs, and selling it to kids. The problem is none of these claims were able to be backed up since there was nothing to prove that these events had ever occurred, until the case of a teenager who went by the name the Acid King.
Turning this down though. Look at the bass was kind of there though. Ricky Allen. All right, cool. March 29th, 1967.
In the quiet suburbs of New York's Northport community on Long Island.
I don't live too far from this nigga. Bro. I don't live too far from this nigga. That's weird. I didn't look this shit up. This was on my fucking... That's weird, bro.
Was born.
Nah, this was the 60s.
He was named after his father, Richard Dick Casso, who was a well-respected history teacher and football coach at Cold Spring Harbor High School. His mother, Lynn Casso, was a teacher as well. To avoid any confusion, I will be referring to Ricky's father by his middle name. Ricky's parents would later have more children, and Ricky would be the oldest, as he had 3 younger sisters. For some time, Dick and Lynn would describe Ricky to be the greatest kid in the world, and Dick believed his son had a bright future ahead of him. He would describe Ricky as a model child and a young athlete. As a young boy, he would wake up early in the morning to play football with his friends and occasionally with his father. Though Ricky's bright future would soon start to fade away when he started the 6th grade, he would slowly become rebellious and started to smoke marijuana at the age of 11. And this was just the start of his interest in drugs,
Some niggas from Wyandanch. Nah, I'm joking. Let me tell you, I love my Wyandanch people.
devil worship, heavy metal, and the occult.
Don't, bro. Oh man, I hate nigga just doing shit for the internet, bro. Do not be playing no fucking reverse music in my ear, bro. I hate when niggas do that. I'll turn it right back up.
When Ricky was 13, he befriended a boy by the name of Jimmy Troiano in the 7th grade. The two met at school during football practice. Jimmy was someone who was a promising athlete as well, but was also rebellious just like Ricky. You see, Jimmy had been in juvenile hall before for almost a year
420! Haha!
And selling acid. The two hang out quite often, experimenting drugs together. It started out with smoking marijuana to later graduating to stronger drugs like mescaline, LSD, and PCP. Eventually, the two would begin skipping class and football practice to meet up and do drugs.
That's how Northport getting down?
A classmate of Ricky's remembers him walking into art class and began drawing a dragon where he kept mentioning that the dragon was moving. Though this would just be the beginning. As his use of drugs increased, so did his anger problems. And during a football game, Ricky was ejected for an illegal hit he did on the opposing quarterback, and Ricky's father was angry. Now, I mentioned Ricky would play football as a kid, but Jimmy stated that Ricky hated football. He says it's because Ricky never liked the sport at all and always made comments saying, "I hate this sport, I hate this game." Jimmy also added that Ricky only played football because his father would force him to. Over the years, the two would continue to use drugs and get high together. Ricky eventually stopped caring about school and football and would ultimately drop.
So, What I'm hearing is maybe he was like, his father saw him as a model student because he was on his ass so much. But because he was on his ass so much, this nigga started to, I don't know, but he probably just started hanging out the wrong nigga.
Out of high school when he turned 16. Ricky became well known for not only his use of hallucinogenic drugs, but selling them as well. Because of his reputation, the younger teens had looked up to him because he was always in possession of acid, and depending on his mood, he would allow these young teens to take a hit of his drugs for free. This is when he would begin to call himself the Acid King, and would start obsessing over the idea of devil worship and the occult. His former classmates have stated that Ricky would hang out a lot at cemeteries where he would smoke 10 bags of PCP so that he can get in touch with the devil himself and chant, "Satan, Satan, Satan."
Nah, this nigga's just weird, bro. He's just weird. That's not even how you do it, dog. You gotta get a chicken. No, I'm joking. But, nah, yeah, he's just weird. Smoking 10 bags of PCP, that's a lot of, like, drugs. Like, that's some real geeker shit, bro. That's worse than, like, a pint of lean, probably. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's some real old head shit.
Someone, they stated the following. Ricky was of the devil. When he was on acid, he'd go back into the dark woods, up in Estequia, and he would talk to the devil. He said the devil came in the form of a tree, which sprouted out of the ground and glowed. And when he tried questioning Ricky about it, Ricky simply responded that he didn't like talking about it as people thought he was nuts. Ricky would show up at a library, picking up books on Satanism, wanting to learn more on the subject. Jimmy had said there were occasions where he'd be walking down the street and hear Ricky yelling out "Hell Satan" when walking by certain places. His obsession with Satanism didn't come from reading books like the Satanic Bible, which he had expressed interest in, or people who claimed to be Satanist. Instead, it came from his love of rock and roll and heavy metal music.
This nigga's a dick sucker, bro.
A former classmate had mentioned that he would begin to notice a change in Ricky's appearance, from having short hair and always smiling to having long hair and always wearing concert t-shirts. One of the popular spots Ricky and his friends would hang out a lot was the gazebo in the park down by the waterfront. Ricky's behavior would get worse and there was no sign of him getting any better. It was unbearable to his parents. Ricky's father had made a statement about his son's behavior, saying he became insubordinate to his teachers, then joined in a house burglary and began to get in trouble with the police. Ricky had told his father, "I enjoy the fantasy world of drugs. You can't stop me. I love drugs."
Yeah, I think he just hung out with the wrong people. Look, Suffolk. Oh my God, that's so nasty, bro. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God, bro. That's so nasty.
It would scare his parents when they found out that he would write songs about Satan and would openly talk about his drug deals. He'll say things like, "Mom, I'm going down to get a few hits of meth. I'll be back for dinner." He even told his mother that suicide is the ultimate high. He even went as far to put ketchup on his arm and call his mother, yelling at her, "See what you made me do?" And as her mother runs to check on Ricky, he would laugh when she sighs in relief when she realizes that it's not blood. They would often kick him out of the house whenever they were fed up with their son's behavior. Ricky would then occasionally live on the streets, cars, local woods, garages, backyards, and houses of friends. Ricky would discuss with a friend that he wanted to start a cult and eventually would create a loosely organized cult that referred to themselves as the Knights of the Black Circle. The cult had 4 members: Ricky, Jimmy, Albert Quinones, and Gary Lowers.
These niggas are weird, bro. I genuinely think there are ways to like talk to like the devil and whatnot. I don't know what ways those are. And don't tell me. But what's it called? These niggas are just weird. They're just weirdos, bro. Oh, yuck.
A local by the name of Dan Carson stated,
He didn't even have like family reasons for this shit. They literally said just because he listened to fucking music. That's some dick sucking ass shit. Chill.
they used to take
If
animals
you're a
down
demon,
here and
chill
cut them
though.
up,
That's like
burn them,
chill.
and stuff like that. He goes on to say that he believes that Ricky was the biggest influence in the group. The younger teens who looked up to Ricky would go to his shack where he would ramble on about Satanism, but the kids didn't care about any of that. They really only looked for him because he was the only one who sold acid very cheap. His whole
Niggas is waiting for the trap. Oh man, this nigga bugging. But yeah, bro, yeah, double black shit, bro.
obsession with Satanism
Man,
was
that nigga
irrelevant to
bugging.
them. Since Ricky wasn't living at home, he never reached out to his parents except for 2 reasons. 1. He was in trouble with the law, or 2. He was extremely ill. In the late fall of 1983, when Ricky was 16, he got arrested for digging into a colonial-era grave to steal a skull to be used in some sort of ritual. He was held in jail for a day or two and was then released. He wouldn't be charged until the following year in April. And at this time, Jimmy was arrested for burglary and was sentenced to 8 months. Ricky's parents had tried to help him and sent their son to a drug rehab program at South Oaks Hospital, but to no avail. According to a local, he had talked to Ricky shortly after being released from the hospital. He says that Ricky got out by bullshitting the doctors. When he went in, they believed he worshipped Satan and shit. And he told doctors that he was fine, that he was gonna go back to school and doesn't believe in Satan anymore. And he bullshit the doctors so much they finally believed him and they let him go. Another local has said that he ran away from the hospital. When she saw him at the train station, she noticed Ricky's hair was now red to avoid being found. She asked Ricky,
"So you make it a hot color? Why don't you just cut it and wear hoodies?"
"What's going on?" And he goes, "No way are they going to lock me up. I'm not crazy." I was like, "I never said you were crazy, but maybe you need help with drugs." He said, "I do not." And then he started yelling, coming closer. I talked my way out of it. I think Ricky stopped living in 8th grade. In April of 1984, Ricky had a court hearing, so he would go back to his home where he would shower. His father wasn't thrilled seeing his son there, but he was nice enough to still drive Ricky to court. After the hearing, Ricky was dropped off near a convenience store where he would ask his father for some money. His father declined and Ricky would kick his car, leaving a dent on the passenger side door. And this is when Dick had disowned his son and banned Ricky from his home. He told Ricky to never come back nor to ever contact him or his family. With this, Ricky's use of drugs would only further increase.
Is this like a movie scene on his life or some shit?
I've been
Y'all
using
play this shit
Epidemic
again,
Sound
bro.
as
I would
my
slap the
go-to
shit out of
resource
whoever
for
made this
background
shit.
music.
Give a fuck how big. Yeah, nigga, we can start a beef, nigga. I'm playing this shit in my fucking ear.
Best friends. I was always there for him. Always
He
best.
about, hold on, this shit not over. Yeah, this nigga about to volley.
Ricky, Gary, and
Turn
several
this
other
down.
friends
What
of
the
theirs attended
fuck
the party
is
in the
that,
woods
my
late at
nigga?
night. Ricky, being
This
the
nigga
acid
look like,
king, had
pause
PCP
it,
with
bro.
them.
Pause it. What is this, bro? Hell no, nigga. This nigga's a danger. These niggas both look dangerous, but this nigga look like a picture of fucking vampire.
As the party went on, Ricky would eventually pass out from getting extremely high. As Ricky was passed out, his friend Gary wanted more PCP. So as Ricky was still unconscious, Gary stole 10 packets of PCP out of Ricky's pockets.
How much?
When everyone woke up the next morning, someone informed Ricky that they saw Gary stealing the rest of his PCP while he was asleep. Ricky became furious and confronted Gary, demanding he either gives his drugs back or pays them back. Gary refused that he had stolen any drugs from Ricky, but Ricky didn't believe him, so he had beaten him to a pulp. Gary would give Ricky back 5 packets of PCP. Since Gary only returned 5 out of the 10 he stole, this meant he owed Ricky $50, and Gary promised he would borrow the money he owed from his parents to pay him back. But Gary wouldn't keep his promise, and Ricky wasn't going to let this go.
Where do you find this picture, bro?
For the next few days, Ricky would continue to beat up Gary. The problem was that Ricky didn't even care about getting his money or drugs back. To him, this was all just to prove a point. Locals have said that Gary was afraid of Ricky and always seen getting chewed up and constantly getting his ass kicked. In one instance, someone saw Gary come out from behind a church. His jacket was ripped, cuts on one side of his face with blood dripping down. Another stated that she fixed his wounds up one time, his black eye and bloody nose. And Gary would tell her that Ricky was—
bro, I would have never knew this. Yo, bro, no cap. I live in the island. Like, I would have never knew this shit if I never saw this video. That's crazy. This is some like Long Island lore. Like, that's crazy.
An asshole, and that he bought a knife to protect himself because Ricky had told Gary that next time he was going to do more and it won't just be a black eye. A month later, Ricky was starting to get sick as he had pneumonia, so he went back to the home of his parents and asked for help. Despite what his father said of never coming back, Ricky's parents couldn't resist seeing their child in pain, so Ricky was sent to the Long Island Jewish Hospital. While Ricky remained in there, his parents wanted to have him institutionalized. They explained to the doctors about the grave digging incident, his daily use of PCP and other hallucinogens, suicide attempts / jokes, and his threatening behaviors. but the psychiatrist didn't believe there was anything wrong with him. They said Ricky was antisocial, but was neither psychotic nor dangerous, so they let him go. Now that Ricky
That's some Long Island shit too, bro. Yeah.
he was back out again, he was still not done with Gary.
I love you. Do you love me?
On June 19, Jimmy was released from jail after serving 8 months. He met up with Ricky and Albert. The three were planning to go to the Aztecia woods to get high, but what confused both Jimmy and Albert was when Ricky decided to invite Gary along. They believed maybe Ricky had finally let go of the whole drug incident. The four headed their way deep into the secluded woods at 8 p.m. They made a fire, and according to Jimmy, they took somewhere between 30 to 40 hits of PCP and LSD altogether. Now, these four have hung out in the woods at night before, but this night though was a bit different than the others. Reason was there were 3 crows that would circle around right above the teenagers' campfire. Ricky noticed this, and keep this in mind as it will be important later on. As the night went on, the fire would slowly die out, so Ricky would suggest using Gary's jacket as a kindling. Gary would refuse to throw his entire jacket into the fire, but agreed to cut off and use his sleeves, and later his socks. As the fire started to die out again, Ricky suggests to cut Gary's hair to keep the fire alive. Gary would refuse, but Ricky didn't listen. He didn't want to hear a no from Gary, so Ricky got up and Jimmy held Gary down. Ricky cut out clumps of Gary's hair using the pocket knife he carried. Once cutting it, he threw it onto the fire and Gary said, "I'm getting bad vibes that you want to hurt me." Ricky replied, "Hurt you? I don't want to hurt you. I want to kill you." Ricky immediately pounced on Gary and bit him on the neck, then proceeded to stab him somewhere between 17 to 36 times. During the stabbing, Ricky had shouted to Gary, "Say you love Satan," and Gary wouldn't comply to his request. Instead, he would shout back, "I love my mother." Each stab, Ricky would tell him to say it, but Gary never does. Once Gary was dead, Ricky would gouge out his eyes. Some people believe Ricky had gouged his eyes as some sort of satanic ritual, and Ricky had said that the crow is above cod. He believed Satan manifested as a crow, and the call was a sign that the devil was pleased of his doing.
Nah, bro. Yeah. It's real geeker shit. That's a tweak, bro. I think it's a tweak, and I need to make sure all of his family members have moved off of the island, away from me, in a different town, state, and province, city, country, and zip code. Hell no. That's
and where
crazy.
was Jimmy and Albert during all of this? Well, we don't really know. You'll see why. For 2 days, nobody knew about the murder of Gary for 2 reasons. One, his body was deep into the secluded woods, so the chances of him being found were slim.
I'm definitely gonna look up where the whatever the Albuquerque fucking tree. I'm gonna stay away from certain areas. It's definitely, yeah.
And 2, he was a frequent runaway, so nobody really questioned about his whereabouts. But good old Ricky couldn't keep this to himself. He would later start bragging to his friends that he killed Gary as a sacrifice to Satan, and Jimmy would tell him to stay quiet about it as he just wants to forget about it and move on. But Ricky didn't listen. According to a local by the name of Rich, he says he saw Ricky one night, and Ricky told him that he killed Gary, but Rich didn't believe him. The next night, Rich decides to see the supposed dead body because he thought Ricky was bullshitting as usual. As they head.
What? Who like? What? Can we like honestly? What town is this? Because this is Northport. If this is Northport, y'all niggas is actually, this is scary. There's a common sense thing that just isn't there, bro. That's scary as fuck. That's scary. That's dead ass scary, bro. You just call somebody, bro. Call your family. Tell somebody that. There's this nigga that's talking about he's killing people. Like, what the fuck? You check it out.
Head into the woods. He tells Ricky, "Rick,
he was with this nigga? Oh my god. Why would you be around a nigga who's no?
Did you kill a fucking cat?" And then Ricky points and says, "There it is." Rich finally saw Gary's lifeless body covered with a thick pile of maggots and leaves on top. Rich turned around and quickly ran off. He says Ricky seemed calm about the whole thing. As he meets with him back at the park, Ricky tells him, "See, I told you." And when asked why he did it, he responds with, "For kicks." For 2 weeks since the brutal killing, Ricky would continue to brag and show his friends Gary's body. But as days went by, both Jimmy and Ricky's paranoia would slowly increase. They returned back into the woods to move Gary's body in a shallow grave. His body was badly decomposed, and as they tried to move him, Gary's head came off. Afterwards, the thrill of the murder would start to fade for Ricky, and he was back to being bored. Jimmy and Ricky would leave Northport and plan a road trip to head to California. They planned on making a career by selling drugs. The next day on July 1st, a 16-year-old girl would call the police to report of Gary's body, but the officer who answered the call didn't see anyone by the name of Gary being reported missing. When the officer asked what the girl's name was, she quickly hung up. The officer simply dismissed it as some prank call. At this point, Ricky and Jimmy were 160 miles away from their hometown before they needed more money to be able to progress their road trip.
Yeah, that's a lot of like driving though. From LI to fucking CA, like that's OD.
They sold some mescaline and bought a junker car for $50.
Only some shit you could do back in the day, bro. when the world was really in the Wild West, bro. Like
back in Northport on July 4th, 3 days after the call, the police decided to go to the woods to look for Gary, as they were confirmed by his mother that she hasn't seen Gary in a while. She even stated that she once got a phone call by someone with this eerie voice saying, "You'll never see your son again because I just killed him." Police used 4 canines and eventually found a pile of bones, a denim vest, pants, and a pair of shoes. Since his body was out in the woods for a little over 2 weeks, his body had been completely drained of blood and his face was practically gone. As police discovered what was left of Gary, Ricky and Jimmy decided to drive back home to party with their friends on 4th of July.
Oh, that sucks.
The two partied, got high on acid, and eventually both would sleep in their vehicle. The next morning, police got a call of a suspicious...
I want to know how much pussy those niggas got. Like, did they get a lot of pussy? Like, or like, were they just weirdos? Because I know like you can get pussy and be a weirdo, but like, never mind, it's my fault.
Vehicle. When an officer arrived, he noticed it was both Jimmy and Ricky asleep in their vehicle, so the officer called for backup since they were considered as highly dangerous. Backup arrived and arrested the 2 teenagers. They were still sluggish as they were still high from the drugs, but as they started to sober up, Ricky went back to his old, cocky ways.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned as we attempt to commune with the devil.
What? Don't get this shit off my shit, bro. I don't even be watching that type of shit, bro. Oh, that's where the shirt's from.
Ricky first told police that he didn't know anything about the killing and that he hasn't seen Gary in some time. But later, Ricky would confess to the murder, and the chief who interviewed him said he sounded so proud of what he had done, stating he got what he deserved.
He said what?
The chief who interviewed hasn't seen Gary in some time. But later, Ricky would confess to the murder, and the chief who
this nigga a bitch, bro. How you going to snitch on yourself? Nigga just
interviewed him said he sounded so proud of what he had done, stating he got what he deserved. Ricky would sign a confess statement that he did the killing and Jimmy played no role into the murder. At least, that's what he told Jimmy, because in reality, Ricky was lying. He actually told police this: "I was holding him on the ground and Jimmy kicked him in the ribs. I looked up at Jimmy and Jimmy indicated to cut his throat. I then took out my knife and stabbed Gary. The knife went all the way in. Somehow, he got away and ran through the woods. I caught him and brought him back to where the fire was. I dropped my knife when I chased him, and Jimmy Troiano found it and gave me the knife and I stabbed Gary in the back a whole bunch of times. Me and Troiano dragged Gary back in the woods. We started covering him with leaves and he sat up. I bugged out, started to stab him in the face. I didn't count how many times. I'm not really sure. I don't know what I said, but I said a whole bunch of satanic things."
This nigga lied. Yo, this nigga's a pussy. Let's go. This nigga's a bitch. What the fuck? He's a weirdo and a bitch.
Now, this story went everywhere.
As
you can imagine, the public were frightened, especially because of this
is a cool ass, never mind.
Murder linking to Satanism. But police didn't call this case satanic, but rather a drug-related murder. Ricky had seen himself on the news that night and everyone in jail knew what Ricky was in there for. Jimmy says Ricky was starting to feel scared because he did
Dangerous ass nigga. No, the inmates were scared. If I'm in holding and I see bro to the left of me sitting down and he's looking up at the TV and I see this nigga's picture, it's an LI cops hunt killer Satan. Bro, I'm moving to the other. I'm fighting. I'm doing something to get the fuck up out of there. I'm not staying in holding with you, or I'm staying in the farthest corner away from you.
Didn't know what the inmates
Nigga,
might feel
I'm scared of
about
you.
him killing in the name of Satan.
He's a
Gary's
pussy.
dad talked to the news wanting to distance his son from Satanism.
My son was not involved in any drugs, and he was
Damn, bro, this nigga got a lie for you on camera. I wouldn't even talk to the news, bro. Like this is so embarrassing. And this is so embarrassing, bro.
fearful of this kid, Ricky Castle, because he had been acquainted with him, maybe at a previous occasion from school, and apparently also after school. So he was fearful of him, and it is my belief that he was abducted, that they were just waiting for him. They saw my son as their victim that they needed, and abducted him somehow or other.
As the night went on, Ricky started to feel pressured, and within less than 48 hours, Ricky grabbed his bedsheet and hung himself, leaving
Yeah, I expected it. I ain't gonna lie, I did expect this nigga to kill himself at the end. Talking about suicide's the greatest high. Like, you a bitch.
his friend Jimmy all by himself. This now meant that Ricky's statement was useless and inadmissible. Albert had agreed to testify against Jimmy in return for immunity. Jimmy had signed 2 confessions that he later recanted. People thought this would be an open and shut
Niggas just snitching on each other, bro. No loyalty.
case, but there was just one big problem.
Eyes were cut out in what county police...
Oh yeah. Was it the biting on the neck? I was also gonna bring that up. Yeah. How the fuck? It's not Jimmy's fault. The nigga bit him on his neck. Did they not? I mean, did he not? That's also gay too. I'm not gonna lie. That's not a bad thing to be gay, but that is kind of gay. And like, and yeah. It is. It's a little fruity, but hey, man. There's
About a devil-worshipping cult.
Imagine your pastor come outside looking like this, stiff ass suit.
Jimmy's attorney, Eric Nyberg, talked to Jimmy asking his version of what had happened. He told Eric a strong, convincing story. They arranged another meeting and asked Jimmy again his version of the story. Again, Eric says it was a strong, believable story. And the problem? It was different than the first one, and he did it again a third time. So Eric decided to take him back to the scene of the crime, and again, a different yet very believable story. Eric calls him out on it and asks why is he constantly changing his story. Jimmy replied, "Mr. Nyberg, when the trees are melting and the stars are racing across the sky, it's hard to remember what happened." This is when Eric had a plan and knew how to win this case. The trial would begin a year later. In court, prosecutors brought Albert on stand and made him tell his side of the story. Albert's version was that Jimmy was the one who held Gary down while Ricky repeatedly stabbed him, and this was supported by medical examiners.
Something like 22 stabbing or cutting type wounds going up and down the back. The skull injuries were in the facial area, something like 7 or 8 wounds there. One was a little lower down just above the upper teeth, but mostly they were in the region of the left eye.
I need more Long Island lore, bro. What the fuck? I did not know where I was living at, bro. What the fuck?
This pattern of wounds certainly would be what you'd expect if someone were being held immobile and then someone else were doing the stabbing who's right there just going up and down.
But of course, this is when the big problem takes place.
I need some of that.
Albert admitted to taking at least 10 hits of LSD prior to the killing. So this begs the question, is his testimony even reliable? If Jimmy can barely remember what had happened, how is Albert any different if he was just as high as the rest? To be able to prove this, Albert admitted to police that he saw a lion in the woods that night. So in court, Eric asked him if he saw a lion that night, to which Albert responded he did not. Eric tells him, "But didn't you hear? There was a circus in town and a lion escaped." And Albert says, "You mean the lion was really there?" This completely destroyed Albert's credibility, and it continues to get worse. On cross-examination for the first time, Albert admitted that prior to the attack, he had taken part in attacking Gary by kicking and punching him along with Ricky and Jimmy, and Albert would then recant his statement and said he was positive Jimmy never held Gary down. Eric would now make his closing statement to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, I humbly and respectfully submit that only God Almighty knows or will ever know what happened that night. If Jimmy Troiano or Albert Quinones deserve to be punished, it is the Almighty to make that decision." 3 days later, the jury returned with a verdict. Jimmy Troiano was found not guilty for second-degree murder.
Ew. This nigga look like...
Port Long Island say death threats have forced them to post guards at the homes of 5 community residents as a grand jury continues.
My name is Ashley Fuyol.
Shut your punk ass the fuck up, bro. I gotta chill with the cursing. I'm gonna have kids one day.
Once it was all over, the media were going after rock and metal bands like Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, and AC/DC. And my biggest guess is because these were commonly known as Ricky's favorite bands. After all, he was wearing an AC/DC shirt the day of his arrest. They also blamed role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons. People in Northport were worried that the killing would leave a bad reputation, but after many years, it was calm, quiet, and nothing like this ever happened again. Of course, this didn't stop people from believing devil worshippers were
this. Nah, listen. Now, if a nigga ever pulls up,
happened again.
Look at this nigga, Dark Lord Blood, satanic worshiper. Niggas like this get slapped. Word of bro. I swear, like this nigga just look pussy.
Of course,
shitty
this
ass
didn't
glasses.
stop people from believing devil worshippers were out there, spreading the words of evil.
Also being sold for healthy reasons. Man, what's healthy about selling a knife to this and this?
Vicky!
Yo, the shit niggas used to intake back in the... I mean, I can't really speak for shit now, because niggas be watching anything, but... The shit you were forced to intake back in the 80s?
I don't know whatever happened with Albert after all these years, but Jimmy would appear in a documentary about Ricky Castle titled Satan in the Suburbs that was released in the year 2000. There's an interview with Jimmy as well. Jimmy says he never really was pissed at Ricky after his death. He was mostly angry that he got himself in this mess. He also apologizes to Gary's parents and wished he was sober that night. I read a comment that Ricky's father had died of Lyme disease in the early 90s. Another that said Ricky's father was a piece of shit.
Hold on. Oh yeah, his dad was awful. Well, how do you even know this? Ricky and Gary would still be here. That's fucked up. His dad was an actual parent. His husband. So Ricky basically had no one. After their dad died, mom gave the house to the girls, moved upstate. All girls followed. Eventually, all 3 girls followed, and now they all live upstate. Wendy Castle was the youngest and only had... Ricky's back. That's crazy.
But a crazy thing did happen with Jimmy.
Get them niggas the fuck out of here! Bye-bye! That shitty... Nah, let me chill. Yeah, Northport, definitely staying out of there. Don't need to be around none of that energy. I stay out of AV. Fucking, I'm out of Northport now. Gangsta.
On October 9, 2004, he was arrested for robbing CVS Pharmacy, trying to get Oxycontin and fentanyl patches.
I peeled... We took 3 pops. Who the fuck does this nigga think
he left a note to someone behind the cash register saying this. He was sentenced to 12.5 years. Last thing I could find was a comment saying he's happily married now.
Oh, man.
In that same interview, Jimmy was asked what he would tell Ricky if he was here right now.
Hope you said your prayers before you hung up.
That's fucked up. I mean, it's not really fucked up.
It's been 37 years since the murder of Gary Lauwers, and this case is still talked about a lot, but I barely find any youth.
It's not. It's like, it's not. It's never been talked about. It's not, you don't hear about this shit. Nah. And I've been in Northport a good handful of times. It's not.
2 videos on it. There was a documentary on this case that was released back in 2019. However, it's unavailable. You can watch Satan in the Suburbs here on YouTube. I'll leave a link to the playlist down below, as well as the interview with Jimmy. There's a film based on this case titled Ricky 6, which is also available here on YouTube. I'll link that as well.
Oh, yeah, I was right. That's what he's been using.
It's unfortunate we will most likely never know what really happened that night. Both of the surviving teenagers couldn't keep their story straight, and the one who confessed to the crime is gone.
This nigga just made a video about an assumption. So how you tell that whole story?
So, maybe Eric is right. Maybe only God will ever know what really happened.
Oh, my fault. Yeah, I muted my mic. I muted the TV. I'm not gonna listen to whatever the fuck is playing right now. That's for you to decide.
There was just a group of kids that came down here that, you know.
Is the video over or like is this just like clips? Yeah, it's over, bro. I don't need to be around this. Yo, listen. I don't believe in Satan. Like, subscribe. The one thing I got out of this was stay out of Northport. Don't trust niggas that do acid. Don't follow people into the woods that say they killed people. And the last one was stop snitching. Yeah. So that's the end of the video. Yeah.